everybody. Hope you've had a great week. We're on Chapter 7 of Pilgrim's Progress, and this is called Vanity Fair. In just a minute, we'll talk about the word vanity, in case you don't know what that means. But I want to show you where we're traveling. Christian has been through the valley of the shadow of death, and he met his friend Faithful along this path, and they're getting ready to go through Vanity Fair. And if you'll notice, they have to go through there. There's no way around it. There's no other path that they can take. And that's important because they have to face some temptations and learn some lessons in Vanity Fair. Well, here's Christian and Faithful walking along the path. They're on the narrow path, and they enjoyed talking to each other last week, our lesson last week, when they learned to be encouraging to each other. And even though they had gone through different experiences, they learned that God was faithful to them, whatever they went through. Well, here they get to Vanity Fair. And here's a picture in our book of what it might have been like at Vanity Fair. If you'll see, the people are all dressed up in fancy clothes, and they're having a really good time at Vanity Fair. Well, vanity was set up by the wicked prince who represents Satan and his evil helpers. We're going to learn some of the things that they had to face when they went into Vanity Fair. Vanity is pride. It's the opposite of humility. It means you think you're very important. And we're going to talk about that today. It comes from the word vain, which means unproductive and useless. So we'll be talking about what that means. It's a deceptively beautiful part of the world. Things that look good but are not really good for us. And so as they got to Vanity Fair, they realized the path, they had to go straight through it. And we're going to take a look at what's inside of Vanity Fair in a minute. Satan does often entice us with things that are pleasing to our eyes, things that look good and look beautiful, but sometimes turn us away from Jesus and from following God. In 1 John it says, "Do not love the world or anything in the world. If anyone loves the world, the love of the Father is not in them. For everything in the world, the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life comes not from the Father, but from the world. The world and its desires pass away, but whoever does the will of God lives forever." So, as they enter into Vanity Fair, we realize, because they have to go through it, it's because we live in the world. We don't live in a separate place. We have to face some of the temptations, some of the things that we want, and sometimes what we have to learn is not to put them above God. And that's what they learn at Vanity Fair. Over here are some examples of some of the things maybe that they saw, or that can represent things, riches and beautiful things. Maybe a shiny ring, or a beautiful pen, or jewelry. Shiny, beautiful things that entice us to want more. Sometimes that it makes us not be content with what we have when we see all those things. Vanity Fair was just full of all kinds of things like that. They're empty, and they're not lasting. They're very temporary things. Remember that Satan tempted Jesus in the wilderness. He was going to give him all the kingdoms of the world. He said, "If you bow down and serve me." Jesus said, "No, it is written." And then every time Satan tempted Jesus, Jesus answered with, "It is written." He used God's word. And if you look right here, these beautiful things, they're very pretty. Pearls and gold beads and pretty shiny materials. They look really good. And I think Satan does use those to lure us, because really, remember, Satan was like a dragon, a monster. Not the beautiful things, but behind some of that, and behind our desires for some of the things of the world isn't beautiful. It's very messy and awful. In James it says, "Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Let perseverance finish its work so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything. If any of you lacks wisdom, you should ask God, who gives generously to all without finding fault, and it will be given to you." So Christian and faithful are learning that we are tempted and tested, and we can only face it with God. We can't do it on our own. And they were learning that God is making them stronger and more like Jesus when they encounter the temptations. And we know that God's working out something good in our lives. Well, evangelists also met them along the way and told them to be careful when they went to Vanity Fair and to be strong. And he also said that one of them was going to die for their faith. And so we're going to find out about that today. But he said, even if you die, you'll go straight to the celestial city. You'll be taken there, and you will be where you belong forever. Well, I'm going to take away part of the Vanity Fair so you can see inside it. So I'm just going to move these things over here, and we'll see what's inside the city. There were people dressed up in beautiful clothes and having a sort of like a big party. They were not thinking about God. They didn't love God. Now, it is a great thing to have fun, to have a party, to have a lot of fun with your friends and your family. It's great to have pretty jewelry and to enjoy beautiful things as long as God's the first and we're not worshiping the things. So they got into Vanity Fair, and they realized they were dressed differently. They acted differently. They weren't joining in on the fun that people were having that didn't involve God. And they looked different. There were people that were cheaters and fools and beggars. They were busy doing whatever they wanted to do, whether it was right or wrong. Anything goes in Vanity Fair. There were no rules. It reminds me a little bit of what the people were like right before the flood, where Noah tried to warn them, and they said, we can do whatever we want to do. It doesn't matter. That's what the people of Vanity Fair were saying. They weren't pilgrims. They weren't living for God. But Christian and faithful did speak up for the truth. They talked about their king and about where they were going to the celestial city. And you know what happened? The people of the city, they beat them up. And they laughed at them. And they put them in a cage, even though they hadn't done anything wrong. So they put them here in this cage, and they kept laughing at them and throwing things at them. And they were still faithful. They responded with kindness and gentleness. Some of the people of the city even came and were wanted to be on their side. But most of the people were very unkind to them. They brought them before Judge Hategood. His name was Judge Hategood. He did not like anything good. And they brought them before Judge Hategood, and they accused them of all kinds of things. These people would tell lies about them. They were saying terrible things. One of the people that spoke against them was named Envy, and another one was named Superstition. And they said that they would, and Faithful spoke up and said, I will never serve you. I will never serve the wicked prince. I will only serve the king, Jesus. And Faithful said, anyone or anything in this town that is against God and his word is fit for hell, he said bravely. Well, that made the people very angry, and they took Faithful out of the cage, and they beat him up, and he died. And that was so sad to the Christian, except to remember that evangelist said he would go straight to heaven. And sure enough, he saw the angels come and take faithful away to heaven. And that person, and we hear about these different people throughout history, it's called a martyr, someone who dies for their faith. And we see it in the New Testament. We see where some of the disciples and some of the apostles were killed for their faith, but they went right to heaven, and they were faithful to God, even if it meant they had to die for their faith. Well, miraculously, Christian gets out of the cage, and he says that it was Jesus that came and miraculously let him out of the cage. That reminds me of when Paul was let out of prison, when the angels came and undid his chains and he was set free. So Christian leaves Vanity Fair. He was sad about his friend Faithful because he missed him, but he knew that he was in heaven, that he would made it to the celestial city, and he could leave trusting and believing in God and his strength. One thing that I think we learn from all this is that even when we face temptations and when we face trials, just like Christian has faced here in Vanity Fair, that you know that God is with you. He had a miraculous freeing from the cage, from the prison, and he was on his way again along the straight and narrow path. He was learning about trials. He was learning not to be discouraged, and that God is with him wherever he is and whatever he's doing. He also learned that we're really strangers and pilgrims on earth, that our home is in heaven, and that God promises life that lasts forever for those that know him. I want to close by reading James 1:12, and I think that Christian would have totally agreed with this verse. Blessed is the one who perseveres under trial, because having stood the test, that person will receive the crown of life that the Lord has promised to those who love him. Amen.